What's up, everyone? Today I'm gonna build another decentralized application. So it's gonna be a very simple application, which everyone, when learning any new language, might have developed. The application that I'm gonna develop in this scenario would be the ToDo application. So the simple, like, you get a text editor, you get a submit button, you add your task that you want to do, and then it gets added to the decentralized network, and then you can fetch it back to view all of the tasks. Even we add the delete functionality, right? So we'll go over the theory part first, and then we'll get in on with the development. Now for this tutorial, I expect everyone to have some knowledge with React and Solidity, and also what Ring-B network is and what MetaMask is, right? So let's get on with it. So first, in order to do any decentralized application, this is a standard one, but I have specified the points for the to do application. We will create a smart contract which we will use to track and store the tasks that user creates. Then once the smart contract is ready, we are going to deploy the smart contract. After that, we will create a React app, right, using the create React app command. And then we will use ethers.js, and it's gonna use MetaMask as our wallet, because whenever we do any write on the blockchain, it does take some gas fees, correct? So we will use MetaMask to interact with the wallet, and then it's gonna hit the Ring-B test network to basically create that block. Once the block is created, we can see all the tasks, right? Similarly, we'll do it for the delete task. So here in the diagram, basically, in the first part of the tutorial, we'll go over the server part where we write our Solidity smart contract using hard hat, and then after that we deploy it using a script on the Ring-B test network, right? Once that deploy is done, we get a ABI file. ABI file is basically the JSON file, and we will look into it in detail once I do that implementation. Once that is done, we start with a React UI, and then using the browser's MetaMask, we basically hit the Ring-B network, correct? So let's get on with this. Before moving forward, let me check if I am connected. Okay, so MetaMask is basically my wallet address, right? So where all of my Ethereum coins are stored. Currently I'll be using the test network, Ring-B test network. So it's not going to be the real network, because I don't want to waste real Ethereum on testing purposes, right? So the test network allows us to see whether this whole flow works fine or not. If it works fine, then we can go with the real network, correct? So let's get on with it. I'm gonna create a new directory. I will call it mkdir to do app, right? And then we'll go inside that. Okay, inside this I will create a server folder. So in that server folder we'll have everything. Now let's get into the server folder. Now I will initialize it as an npm package. Let's keep everything as default. Okay, now I'm going to install some dependencies. I'll copy this command, but I'll go over each and every one. So here we are installing ethers basically is used to interact with our blockchain. Hard hat is a test development network. Nomic Labs, Hard Hat Waffle, and Ethereum Waffle are, like, you can say, dependent libraries that might come useful. Similarly, Hard Hat Ethers. Open Zeppelin contracts, basically it helps and provides some abstract methods that are helpful when we create a smart contract. Currently it might not be used, but I'm still installing it in case we need it. The package chai is required to write unit test. We will be writing unit test for our smart contract. And then .env package provides us with the functionality to actually import all the environment variables in our code, because I will be using some secret variables, and you also don't want to share it with the outer world. So that's why we will use this package. Let's run the install. In the meantime, installation is going on. I would ask you all to do two things. One would be go to this site Alchemy, and after logging into Alchemy, create an app, go to dashboard. There you can access your API key. That API key will be useful in interact with the blockchain. And then get your wallet key. So if you go here, go to account details, and then here export private key. So these two keys, the alchemy key and your metamask key, we are actually gonna store them as an environment variables. So keep them handy somewhere safe. Right now I will show you a secured way of accessing them, right? Okay, other than that, I think we are good. In the meantime, let me open my editor. um, let's see, open. Okay, so my app is open here. Right now we don't have anything much. Once we have everything installed, I am gonna initialize a directory with hard hat files, hard hat and pics. So it's gonna create a basic sample project because that's our use case for now. Correct. Yeah, yes, okay. So you see the structure here. We have contracts folder, we have scripts and test, and the hard hat config. So here is the config file. We can actually go ahead and make changes to this file first. You just need to keep everything as it is. You just need to add networks rinkb and then URL. So in this URL, process.env.alchemy rinkb URL. So you need to fetch the URL from the alchemy, and this is where this URL will go. And we also need to mention the account from where it will charge us, because when we deploy our smart contract on the Ethereum network, it's gonna take some gas fees, right? It's not gonna be free. So once this is done, this is our config file being ready. So the metamask key goes here, and the URL key from alchemy side goes here. Now I will show you how I will store these keys, but for now just add these things in your hard hat config. Okay, after this we are gonna go to contracts, and then we will actually call it new file. We'll call it task contract. So this is where we will store all of our contract stuff. Pragma solidity. So the first command is to tell the compiler version, contract to do contract event add task address. We'll have another event as delete task. So here we can have, yeah, we can store the address, or we actually don't need the address here. Let's not use extra data. We can use string task text, right? And boolean is deleted. Cool. These fields we have here, we can have task array, which will be private tasks. This is to store all the tasks. We will be using this data structure during our get, and then we will do a mapping. So mapping 256. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm mapping the task ID to the address. So this will let us know who basically owns the task, right? Because let's say our app will be used by 100 people. Now I added tasks with id 123 and someone else added tasks with id 456. So we need a way to tell that, okay, if I give you task id 2, you should be able to tell me that it's my task, right? So then I will have a function to add a task, right? String memory task text, right? And then boolean is deleted. Okay, so here we are gonna get the id from, so now this task array that we have, it's gonna be a global array, right? So what we can do, the best way would be, I would actually use this length, task dot length, to get the task id of the new task, right? So this will always be unique, and then I will push it to my data structure. So task id message dot sender task text is deleted, right? Oh, okay, so I think this is not there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is what we push when we have task to owner to store task id is owned by this person, right? And then we emit our event, which will be message dot sender task id. Okay, cool. So add task is done. Now we will quickly move on to our get task, like function to get my tasks, right? So get my task will be a free function, it won't take any gas fees, because as I said, we'll be using this already existing data. So we'll be reading a data because we are not adding a new block. Whenever we add a new block, we need to pay some money because it takes computational resources, right, to generate that block, um, in the uh, Ethereum blockchain. So here basically I am taking an extra variable, like a, you can say a temporary variable, in order to basically fetch. First I will fetch all the tasks that are owned by the current user who is asking for it, because as I said, this task is a global variable, so every person on the world using the app will store task, in this array. So I need a way to first figure out how many tasks are owned by me. So I am just gonna do a small for loop is deleted equals to false, counter tasks I counter plus plus. Okay, so once this is done, so I know that there are only counter number of tasks that are mine. So oops, so for int I equal to 0, I less than counter, return result. Okay, so here what I did was I created a temporary variable, we can say an array, temporary array, and here I'm just keeping track of counter variable, the all the tasks that are, owned by me. Once I know that, I basically quickly store all of them in my result array. That's all. Now we will quickly move on to the delete task method. So delete task is correct. In delete task, obviously we need to check. Obviously, from the UI perspective, I am only displaying the tasks that are owned by me. So obviously, the delete button will be pressed by me. But just for extra check, you see on the server level, I am adding this extra flag that checks that, okay, whether this task is, uh, you know, is owned by me or not. If it's not, delete task task id. Okay, so I think once, so these events I've created. So what this emit does is, it basically, think of it, this is the line which basically, does all the proof of work, the consensus algorithm, and adds the block to the blockchain, right? So this is important. So I think this is done now. Now what I'm gonna do here, let me name it task contract. Yeah, it makes more sense as it resembles the file. Okay, so now this is done. What I usually like to do here is, I like to write a unit test for it before even I deploy it. So I am gonna write a unit test task contract test.js. Correct. So here I will have, okay, I will import all the dependencies. Cool. Describe, I can say task contract function. Correct. So here I will create few variables. Just a sec, my computer. Okay, so here I'm gonna create few variables. Task contract. So task contract will basically fetch the contract that we have written, and this smaller lowercase task contract will basically, think of it like an object of our contract. You will see how I implement that. Number of total tasks. So this is some dummy constant that I'm creating. So this is like, before even I test my contracts, I am gonna add some contracts to the chain. So like, I will use before each method. So before each basically is like, before every unit test this function will get called, right? And we will deploy our contract every time a unit test is run, and we then check whether our functionality is done or not. So in our case, we are going to write 3 unit tests: one for add task, one for get task, and one for delete task. So you will see how we do that. Get contract factory task contract, right? So here we get our contract, we sign the contract, and this owner variable will store our address, and then here, think of it like we are storing the contracts object. So once it gets deployed, we get instance of that contract. Okay, so once we have that, let's initialize my total tasks as an empty array, and then I will start a for loop where I will store that many number of, oops, yeah, that many number of tasks to my blockchain. Let task equals, once this is done, we'll await in order to add it. So we will call the add task method, right? Obviously this is not testing the add task right now, but in a way it is testing, because if a task is added, and if it doesn't throw any error, then that means it worked, right? So our before each is done. So now once before each is done, now we will start with testing our add task method, right? So I'll write a function. Cool. Now here it should emit add task event, async function. let task equals task text, new task is deleted as false, correct. And then here we expect that if you see this contract of add task, here we are adding the task and we emit an event, right? So in our unit test, if we are adding a task, we should get an event, emit an event, right? So that is what we are gonna check here. Okay, so here we'll do to emit, so it should emit. So basically it will take some parameter task contract, and what is the event it will emit? It will emit add task event. If you see here, it's emitting add task event, and here we have declared it. So oops, now and what should be the ID of it? So here we saw that we are emitting with the address of the person who added a task and with the ID. So here the argument sent to the event would be the owner dot address. As we saw, we get our own address when we get the signers, and the ID will be equal to 5. Why? Because in before each we are adding 5 tasks already, and if you see the IDs are start with 0 because initially this length is 0. So when we are adding 5 tasks, the IDs of those tasks will be 0 1 2 3 4. So the new task that we add will have this ID. I hope this makes sense. Now wait, okay, cool. Now this is done. We need to do a get all describe get all tasks, return the correct number of total tasks. So here we know that before each will run, right? So we get all the tasks from our contract, and then we should expect that whatever task before each added, so it added 5 tasks, so the length should match that. So from chain dot length dot to should be equal to number of total tasks, right? So this will test that, and then the last one we'll be doing for the delete task. Should emit delete task event, async function So here we will call delete function for a particular task that was already added. So the way we do is we mark it as deleted, right? Because in blockchain, you can never actually remove a data that's already been written. So the other way would be to mark it as delete. So we can use that field later on. When we fetch all the tasks, we only fetch the task which have the deleted field as false, right? That's why we have that delete structure. So now that our tests are written, the way we unit test is we just write npx hard hat, and then we do test. So here, oh, there is one or more config file invalid. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so before that we actually also need to add a .env file. So as I said, we'll be creating a .env file, and then we will actually let me fetch my keys. So I wanted to show you how it will look. So here it should look like what all things we had added. So we'll fetch this, right? So this equals to some string, and then we have another field which is this one, should be equal to some string, right? Now I won't be sharing that my details here, so let me basically move this code from the screen and add it to my file. Once I have added that, okay, I've removed that, but I have the env file, so this will fetch those fields from this file. Now if I run the command, oops, okay, one or more config errors in your file. Let's see why we are getting this. Is there any issue with our hard hat ring b accounts process.env invalid under networks ring b url solidity. Oh yeah, so basically we would also need to require the .env file. So this is the package that we'll be using. Then only it will know to fetch all the fields from here. My bad. So now it should work. Okay, so we got an error. That's fine, because we did make an error. It was line 27, line 27, 27, line 27. Okay, yeah, it should be this. See, that's why unit tests are so good. You can actually catch all of these errors beforehand. Okay, we got another syntax error. See, I'm using int. Okay, I'm still used to C++. So this should be oh, it should be let. This is JavaScript. What am I doing? Okay, so it ran and then it failed. Okay, so task test is not defined. It failed for before each. So before each, oh, it should be task dot, because that's what we have defined in it. Yeah, I think we'll keep getting more errors. Oh, okay, fine. Okay, so it did work. And then I think, yeah, it should actually run this test also. The reason why it didn't got run, see, I don't see add task test here. The three tasks are, is one is from this part. We can actually delete this file, we don't need it. Okay, let's see, task contract, and then we have, why didn't it get executed? Task, yeah, function before each. Let's see. Yeah, so it's only running two tasks. Why? Describe DESCRIPE. Oh, sorry, it should be it. Okay, I had if, silly mistake. So yeah, it should run three tasks. Okay, it's passing. Wonderful. So now it's running and working fine. Now it's time to deploy our contract. So let's get rid of all of these. We'll go to scripts, we'll write a new file, deploy.js, and here we'll actually start writing const main. It will be an async function. Before that we'll have a method run main, so we'll run main, and let's define run main const run main async. Okay, process dot exit. Okay, once this is done, we need to call the main method, right? So we'll implement our contract factory task contract const contract await contract factory dot deploy. So we'll get the task contract from contracts. So hard hat knows that all of our contracts are under this folder, so it will automatically get that. And once we get that, we are gonna deploy it dot deployed. Okay, once it's deployed, we would print the contract address where it was deployed. Why? Because we will be using that address in our React app to interact with the methods that we had created, and you will see how that works. So once this method is ready, we are actually gonna run a command that will now deploy this, and make sure that you keep the network address that we see here in the console handy. So let's run it. Fingers crossed everything works fine, I hope. It does take some time, maybe 1 minute, and it should be done. In the meantime, let me open Ringbee Etherscan. So this is the website where I basically okay, the contract got deployed. Awesome. So it was working fine. Now this is the site where I actually go and press. Okay, so it does take some time. Once we get an entry in the block, we'll see a hash, because even the smart contract got deployed, a block was created. So a block was created with all the logical code that's written in this Solidity file that gets created here. Okay, till the time it does take some time for the set to fetch that block details. But in that meantime, now that our server thing is done, let's go to our this thing and create a React app. Create React app client. Okay, so it's gonna take some time. Let it create some client, and after that we'll install some dependencies. Let's see if we see the address here now. Okay, nothing yet. Okay, awesome. So we saw that 1 minute back, from, and this is from means I am the owner. If you see my MetaMask, and this is the address 5817, it ends with that, and if you see here it's 5817. So I am the owner of this contract, and then the transaction hash that was created is this value. Okay, other than that, now the only part left is React interacting with MetaMask, and then it interacts with Ringbee network. Till the time it's creating this folder, I want to show you when we deploy our contract. If you go to artifacts, contracts, and then under this we see a JSON file. Now this is the JSON file that will copy and move to the clients folder. Reason being, this ABI file, think of it like an API thing. So if you remember, we had two events, add task event and delete task event. It has all the metadata that you need, right? Let's say if I move to add task method, so this is the method. Now in this method it tells that, okay, what kind of input does it take. It takes one string input, another boolean input, and outputs nothing, and then it's type of function, right? So these are all metadata that we store here and the bytecode. So this is helpful and important. So now that everything is deployed, let me copy paste this, copy, close this, go to client source. I'll create a new folder, utils, and I'll paste the file there. So it's pasted there. Okay, awesome. Also I'm gonna create a config file, config.js, and here export const task contract address, and here we'll copy paste this contract address that we need, and we will start using it. So I have exported it, and then it's ready to be used, right? Now we need to actually store some dependencies. So I should not say store, install. So let's go to in client folder, and we have ls. Okay, so now I am gonna install ethers and axios. So I don't think I'll be using axios right now, but still I'm installing it. And ethers is for interacting with the blockchain, so I need that library file. Apart from that, I would need some, for just some css stuff, and some buttons. So there are these files like material ui related file, and some react related style files. So I'll be installing that, because I'll be using it. Other than that, we'll start with our app.js. So let's open our app.js. I actually won't be needing any of these things. Let me remove this. I'll start with React. I'll be using a use state and also use effect. So use effect is like it's getting called when the component gets mounted, right? So I will be calling get all my tasks. So for example, let's say I added some tasks, and let's say I closed my tab. Next time when I open the application, I want all the tasks that I have already added to be displayed here. So I will use effect in that case. Import our dependencies installed. So I will be using text field and button component from material UI. Okay, and then I'll be importing import task from dot slash task. I will create this file and import app.css. We need that. I will also import we need this task contract address from config.js. I need ethers from, and then I need task ABI. This value, it will come from, if you remember in utils I had that. So task contract. So I have all the dependencies. I will create a function app, correct, and then at the end I will be exporting it. Cool. I'll start with all the variables that I need. So I would need const tasks set tasks use state const input set input so input is for all the text that I'll be adding in case of my task, and tasks will store all the array of tasks that I have. Now current account variable will store my wallet address, because if I am not able to get a current account, that means I don't have MetaMask and in that case I don't want user to see my app because it's useless, as we won't be able to pay the gas fees from even correct network. So we need to make sure the person, for example, if I go to MetaMask, right now we see a lot of networks. So in my case I'm using ringb test network, so that should be the network that person should be on. So in order to keep track of that, I'll be using this use state false. Correct. Now here, first thing I will do is I will check for connect wallet thing. So we would want user to connect its wallet, right? Let's see. In the meantime, let me create two files. One is tasks.js, as it will give some errors, and then new file task.css. Correct. And let me add the basic bare backbone in this. So here I will create constant task is equal to export default task, import oops, I am adding this all to the task.css. I should add this here. Okay, so this is done. I will add extra functionality later on. First I want to show you how the connect wallet thing will work. So I will do a try here. Const Ethereum will fetch from the window. Don't worry, automatically the window object gives us everything. Ethereum console.log metamask not detected. Correct. If it's not detected, then return, else let chain id is equal to await Ethereum. So ringb has a unique chain id, so it has id of 0x4. It's in hexadecimal. So we fetch our chain id to whichever network we are there. We don't need to console.log const ringb chain id is equal to 0x4. Correct. If d is not equals to then return, else we will say set correct network to true because we are on correct network. In that case, here in the try catch, let me add this, yeah, and then here I will have constant accounts. Now that our network is correct, await Ethereum dot request method request accounts. Once we get that, we set the current account to whatever the first account we got, right? So this does the trick. Now before adding any other thing, I will go to my this is under function, yeah. So in function we would need to return the HTML tags, right? So we have div and then here I'm gonna add some fields. So let me copy paste this whole thing and I'll explain what's that later on. Okay, so here I basically check if my current account is not empty. If it's not empty, then we show the connect wallet button, else we check the correct network button, else we show all the fields that we need to, right? So this is what we have here. Let's actually save this and run this. Npm run start, and once we do that, we can go to localhost 3000 and wait for our app. So if it doesn't work, we'll see some error and we'll try to fix that. It's taking a little bit of time. Add task is not defined, delete task is not defined. Correct, these two methods are not defined. Let me define those methods, and also let me define use effect. So we would need, this is for const, so here we would need add task, delete delete task, and I'll use connect wallet. Correct. Okay, so here let's compile. Okay, it works, should show something. Oh, is defined but never used. Oops, I'm not on localhost 3000. Go. Awesome. So we see everything working here. Right now it won't do anything because we haven't completed our add task and delete task methods, and also get all tasks. But yeah, let's go with first our add task method. So here we would need let task, we will create a task object first. So we have task text, and this value will be input because that's where we store. So whenever we type something here, it's getting stored in input variable, and by default initially is deleted will be false. Correct. And then we're gonna try something here. We do a catch, and after everything is done, we set input to empty because that's what we do. Const Ethereum would be window, and then if Ethereum const provider, so these are all the settings that we need. Ethers, so as I said, ethers will provide us will methods to actually connect with Ethereum. To connect with the Ethereum text network, right? So we have task, so we have task contract address task ABI dot ABI, and then we have signer. Okay, so once we have that, we'll do a task contract dot add task. If you remember, our contract had a method called add task, and then we have task dot task text comma is deleted, and then we do a dot then. So when we get a response that okay, this block was created, we update our tasks variable with the new task that got added, right? Oh yeah, that's all. Once this is done, we can do a catch on error console.log error. Okay, so this is our add task. Similarly, we would need to do something for our delete task. So let me copy paste that. I can copy paste all of these actually, and then I'll remove the things that I don't need. Correct. So we don't need this. We actually get key because we need delete item ID. So we need the ID of the task that we need to delete, right? We have the Ethereum object here. We would actually don't need this. Let's remove this. Let's do delete transaction. It will be await. We can use await here. Task contract dot delete task key and true. Basically we make it as true, right? All tasks, and then we fetch all the tasks again. All tasks. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so I guess this is for the delete, and we saw some errors. 64 and 85. What is it complaining about? Export ethers or imported as ethers. Ethers, correct. It was imported as ethers.provider. Providers. Okay, I think it should be providers. Yeah, that's the issue. Okay, so it did work. Okay, one more thing is we need a get task method, right? Because what we can do here is when we fetch or when we use effect, we would need to have, so this is our get all tasks method. It's pretty same. So we get the Ethereum object, and then we just get all the tasks and we set all the tasks, right? So we call it in use effect get my tasks. Cool, awesome. And then get my task, get all tasks actually. Where is it? Yeah, okay, get all tasks. Okay, now we need to complete our task because we are iterating over. If you see here, we iterate over key, task, task and on click, right? So we need to pass the on click because we are providing them with a delete button. So class name. So I will be adding these settings later on. Cool, we have list item, list item, and then we close it with list item, and here we have delete icon. So we need to fetch large style opacity 0.7 on click Okay, so we import it, and we also need to import all the list item avatar that I'll be using, and then list item text from material. Cool. Let's save it and see if it works fine. Okay, seems like it works. Here I need to just add one more thing, which would be uh, list item text. Yeah, it will be primary task test. So let's see. Let's try to add it first. Task. So here when I click on add task, I should get a MetaMask notification. I got it. It's asking me for some Ethereum amount. I confirm it, and awesome. The transaction is going on and the first task was added. I would need to add some CSS to it. Let's see. I have to-do list class, right, and I have task.css. Let me add it here. Let's see if it takes effect. Awesome. So this looks better. So now I just click on delete. It should call off delete method. Let's see. Inspect. Okay, so this is gone. On click is on click, and we are passing it on click, right? So we have, let's see if we are passing on click to it. So why is this not working? Okay, so on refresh it's getting all the previous tasks. Let's add second task. It should open this again. Awesome. If I refresh this, all the two tasks should be fetched. Okay, so right now it's not because the transaction is still pending. That's the React thing that we had added it first, so that's why it was coming up, right? And then task.js, let me see. Why is this not working? I think the transaction went through. Awesome. If I refresh this now, okay, it works. Oh, it worked. See, if I click on delete button, it did work. Let's close this. Let's try again. Okay, awesome. If I confirm this now, so once the transaction goes through, it's gonna delete that. Awesome. So it worked. If I refresh this now, yeah, we don't see the second task. Let me create one more. Awesome. So we have two tasks now. Now if I have, see, it's still pending. Let it go first, and then we'll try to delete the first one, and then we refresh the page. We should only see one. Okay, so this went through. Let's click on this. Now it's gonna delete the first task. Confirm. Okay, so it's working its charm, and awesome. So if I refresh this page, we should see only the one task. So that's all for today. If you guys like this, please subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram, and give me a thumbs up. Thanks everyone.